Good morning, my name is Phaedra and it's time for a flower farm tour. It is the first day of winter for us. We've had our first frost, we have the farm fixed up and ready to sit still over winter, and we're having this beautiful sunny day today. I've got my hat on even though you would think that I wouldn't need to wear a hat in winter, but I do. I burn very easily. But I'm here to show you how the farm looks. Welcome or welcome back. I am filming this a little earlier. So I'm filming this before Mother's Day. So you've just seen all of those videos. I hope you enjoyed them. I just couldn't get this in the schedule earlier, but I'm filming a bit earlier. So we have had our first frost, even though this video is released on the 1st of June, which is the first day of winter for us. I'm filming it about 3 weeks earlier, so early May, and which is the end of our spring. The end of our autumn, which is fall. But first, what I want to point out is the fencing situation. You can see I've been around. You will have seen from those drone shots. I have the fencing up because we're getting lots of animals in the field now. I really couldn't leave it any longer, and we're not quite at the point of putting up the permanent fencing. I don't know if you noticed or not. Did you see what I've done to the aisle? This is probably the first big exciting change, and I'm not sure at this point if I love it or not. I'll show you what I mean. High-tech gate. Do you notice anything different? I did a thing. So as you saw, I've taken all of these fence posts out because what I noticed was when I'm filming and when I'm taking photos visually, they were just always in the way. I'll show you what I mean because I haven't pulled out this aisle yet. See how if I wanted to stand back and get a shot of plot 3, I've got all of these posts in the way. I didn't mind the look of it here. This looks okay because it's all nice and aligned. It leads your eye down. But I think I would rather not have them here, and I will create that effect in a different way. My only issue is now, you can see the hose when we're hand watering, which is what we're doing. It stops it running over the edge of the garden beds. So I might need to still put something down really low to stop that from happening. That is the first big change you will have noticed. I'm probably just going to leave that aisle for a little bit longer, just sit on this one for a bit, see how it goes, see what we like, get all of these beds tidied up over winter, and then just have a look at it. But in terms of filming and photographing the flower field, those posts everywhere looked really distracting. It was just too much going on in the pictures. And I know that's the farm look, but it just wasn't the look that I wanted in pictures. And if you've been following for a while, you know I'm a photographer, and sometimes I have clients come out to the farm to get their photos taken out here, and it's just extra work to construct a picture without a post in the way. So that's first thing. But let's get into the tour. First things first, plot 1 is mostly dead. There's a couple of, well, you can see here, this is Carlos watermelon or watermelon Carlos. But this is what happens to dahlias when they get hit by frost. It just kills them. There's some that were a little bit more sheltered. This is dying off. It'll just get one more little frost on it and it'll be gone. But if you were watching along, I had already come along and tagged everything. So now that they're dying off or dead, the next job is come through, cut them off. I usually cut them off about here, so I leave a couple of inches, cut them low, and then we dig them out. And it's a pretty big job. You've got to dig, wash and store all of these tubers. We leave them as clumps. In our climate, we just put them in boxes in clumps. Nothing else, no wood chips, nothing else. Sawdust, nothing. Just clean straight into their boxes, and we leave them in the clumps, and it preserves the tubers for longer for us because they don't dry out as fast. And we have quite a humid climate anyway, so we don't have to deal with really dry, a dry winter or dry air or anything. So we don't need to try to trap moisture into the tubers like I see others doing. In other places, people wrap the tubers in Glad wrap or cling wrap, whatever you call it, the plastic wrap. If we did that here, we would probably lose tubers just because mold would develop. They'd be too moist. So that's where we're at with the dahlias. It's sort of in this, it's kind of, it's at a point where I can just leave it now. I won't cut back the dahlias until I'm, within a couple of days of lifting them all. So I'll just leave them as the plants like this until I'm ready to start digging up, because I don't want it to rain and that rain to fall down the stems and sit in the hollow stem and create rot in the tubers. So I'll just leave it as is until I'm ready to get going on that. We have a bed that needs to be redone. We've got our feverfew. It's just travelling along slowly. Now it's cooled off again. It should take off. And then I've got my Canterbury bells, and they should be throwing up some stems or doing something. They're a biannual, and this is their second season. And I'm just a bit concerned that nothing's happening. They are developing into much stronger plants. The rabbit's got a few of them, but I really would have thought we might have had some action by now. A bit concerned about what's happening there. And then I've just got a couple of other rows. It was vegetables, and we had a little bit of cosmos just in the end, but of course the frost has killed that off. Last season we got a disease in our cosmos, and we had to rip it all out. And I love cosmos. I had 2 rows of it. I had to pull it all out. And I saved some seed from one plant that didn't get that disease, and that's the little plants that grew over there, which was a success. They didn't have the disease, so that's really good. So next season I will plan to put cosmos in again. I just needed to try to make sure we didn't end up with that problem circulating around the farm. I've got a whole video on it. If you want to go and have a look, I'll link it in the description below. It'll just explain the whole thing, and you'll see why it could have become a huge, epic, major problem on our farm if we let that get away on us. This row needs a really good cleanup, and it needs some organic matter and some manure, and it just needs to sit for the winter and just recuperate a little bit. This row I've got some veggies in, so I've got onions and garlic. Now that the frost has hit my very, very tiny zinnia patch, I will pull it out. I've already got the extra organic matter sort of banked up on either edge. I'll push it across into that area so that this row, while it is growing some onions and some garlic up the end, it's prepping ready for spring for me. The gomphrena, I got this in late. It was a little bit of an experiment to see if I could get it to grow quick enough. I planted it in January. It did, but it didn't grow tall enough for me. I actually could have used some of these over here, but I got a bit lazy and I didn't pick it because you'll know it's such a pain in the butt to pick. So I just never got around to it. And of course now the frost has hit it and I can't use it. So that was a bit silly. But anyway, it's more space to plant something else. This is another row that needs to sit over winter and just recuperate. These sunflowers, I'll pop the name up on screen. I'm pretty sure it was Double Dazzler. They obviously look terrible now because they've been hit by frost a couple of times. They were beautiful. I really like them. And I know they look like branching ones, and they are, but that first head is really nice, a really nice stem to use, and then they'll just branch out if you don't get rid of them. A really, really nice alternative to teddy bear. I really thought I'd love teddy bear. It's got that same fluffy look, but I found it too short and too branchy to really use easily in bouquet making or arrangements. Maybe in other applications, specialty sort of things, it might be okay. But if you're looking for that sort of look without all the issues of teddy bear in floristry, try a double dazzler. Another row. Like I said, I'm just going to tidy this one up over winter, get some organic matter, some manure, leaves, and just let it sit. Okay, we're on to the stock, and I'm going to show you this. This stock went in January. It was an experiment. It's generally a cool season flower, and our summers are very hot, but I put it in the heat of summer. I put the netting over it. It just provided a tiny bit of shade, not a lot, just something. The net's more so for the rabbits. And I've just seen what would happen. And it actually grew beautifully. And we do have some buds. The tricky part is it's not going to like the amount of frost that we get. I'm pretty sure it's not going to like it. So it's very touch and go now, but it has been hit a couple of times by frost and it's survived. And it is part of the kale family. And kale does fine in frost. So I'm just letting it sit. Now that I've got the fence around the whole field, got it back and it should be pretty secure. Hopefully the rabbits can't get in now. The wallabies can just jump it. I know that looks really tall, but I've been out here and they just clear it. So if the wallabies want to get in, they will. The rabbits will too, but hopefully this is enough to deter them. I am wondering if I take the net off now, because some of them are starting to get tall enough. And if they start hitting that net, it's going to disrupt their growth. Anyway, I'll show you. It doesn't look like the most amazing head, but we do at least have a nice long stem with a flower on top that's developing. I've got one that's fallen over here. And in terms of the experiment, it was a success. So I will probably try and get them in a little bit earlier next summer, considering they grew so well, and see if I can get them to flower in time for Mother's Day. I have, I think, about 5 different varieties in here, so I do need to come back in, relabel, because the writing's coming off, and just keep tabs on which varieties did better. This one's a bit slower, it's a lot smaller. This variety has much better stem thickness as well. So yeah, it's an ongoing experiment. I'll keep you updated on this one. We'll see what happens. I can't really see that any other varieties have... Oh, there's little buds on this one. Just in there. It's got a pretty fragile stem, that one. Let's see how this is. This one has a much better stem on it as well. So it may even be a case I don't grow the ones with the weaker stems, and I just grow the varieties with the better stems. So that's that. My vine is going to die. It doesn't like the frost. We've got carnations in and they're just slowly taking off. I haven't grown them before, so this is just another little test to see how they do here and how this variety does. I think it's the Chabad mix. Let's just check. Yep, it is. So we'll just stay tuned how that goes over winter. And then the rest is dahlias and some marigolds, which, as you can see, they are very finished. Something that I've learnt about dahlias, well, I've learnt a lot about dahlias, but something that I have noticed, especially this season, is how the colours can change. So I guess just as the stock, the roots sort of are used each year, the tubers, they can slightly change. So the dahlia card, if any of you order the dahlia mystery packs this year, the dahlia card that I've got that comes with the packs now, so you can identify your own, figure out what it is. It's like a dahlia bingo. Some of those colours aren't exactly the same as what you'll find online, and it's just because that's what my stock looks like. So I've photographed my stock. That's what you can expect from mine. So it's probably something to just keep in mind as well. Sometimes I think people buy dahlia tubers, the flower grows and it doesn't look exactly like the picture, and that is just how it can be sometimes, even when you're growing it from tubers. And something really cool I did, I knew the frost was coming. What I've been doing is I've been picking the dahlias closed, because if you've watched my video about dahlias, they do open from bud. They will open in a vase. I've been picking them closed and putting them in buckets. So I've kind of been doing that every couple of days, so that when the frost does hit, I've got a couple of buckets of dahlias that I'll still have for, 4 or 5 days that I can use in bouquets. Of course, then the frost did hit and I had a little stockpile of dahlias. So that doesn't sound like a whole heap, just have a couple of buckets. But the way our business operates is we grow our flowers. We have a florist business, an online florist business, and we supply ourselves from our flower farm most of the growing season. And then once the frost hits, usually we don't have flowers, but I'll show you that we do in a minute. So we'll switch over to wholesale flowers. And then we'll just operate like a normal florist, buying in flowers over the winter. But so to have those 2 buckets of dahlias, that's actually quite an expensive haul. It was about $100 worth of flowers that I then didn't have to go and buy. So it does make a difference. Pretty chuffed I thought of that, actually. They still sort of look pretty even though they're dead. Okay, moving on to plot 3. Now this is where the excitement starts, for me anyway. Back in January, if you remember back to those videos, I planted out a whole heap of vegetables and flowers because I wanted to test what was happening. And you've already seen that I did the stock, but I've also done ornamental kale and snapdragons, and we already had chryses that were going in, chrysanthemums, and then the veggies. And everything's been a success, and we actually have flowers. Even though the frost has hit, we are still picking flowers, and I'm going to show you what they are. First is the snaps, which are not the biggest success. I'll show you what's happened with those. They have flowered. Perfect timing, ready for Mother's Day. But I didn't net it, because as you know, I hate netting, but I think I'm going to have to suck it up and start netting a few things, because I could have had the most amazing long-stemmed snaps. Oh, so tangled. Hang on. Look how tall they could have been. But they're super bent. I will pick it and try and straighten them up in the bucket like I taught a couple of videos back. If you missed that, you put them in a bucket, but you have paper wrapped around it high, so the paper's higher than the flowers, and you pop them under a light source, and then because they're phototropic, they will want to straighten up and try and reach that light. So I'm going to pick them and try and straighten them, see how that goes. But some of them are just very bad. Like this one. You don't know though. I'll see if I can do it. But yeah, we've got amazing long length. I will write down this variety. It was the Costa Velvet, and then I think this was the Costa Orange, which, how pretty would that have been for right now? It did not grow as well because of the weeds. So if you want to try the same, plant them in the heat of summer. Like, you've really got to get them in by the 15th of January to have them flowering by May. I will plant them a little bit earlier maybe, just so I can try and get them a bit earlier. The other thing is these look like huge massive heads for snaps, and they are because I didn't pinch them. So with snaps you can just leave them, not pinch them, and get, if you've used your netting, nice long thick big stems with big flower heads on top, or you can pinch them out and grow multiple stems from that one plant, but they will be a little bit smaller. The heads are quite big. This is how I like them. I actually really love them to be more of a focal flower than just a secondary flower in a bouquet. It feels like a little bit of a loss to me that I was silly enough to not net them. I have grown snaps before and not netted them, but considering I was growing them for Mother's Day and it would have saved me a few $100s to not have to buy in those flowers, I am kicking myself a little bit that I didn't net. And I've got like 1,000 meters of that net that I hate, so I think I better use it next time. The rest of this row is just a few sunflowers. They self-seeded. They are, I think, radiance, or the baby of a radiance. They are about to open. The thing I've noticed about suns is if the frost hits them while they're like this, it's okay. They will continue to open up and be okay. You just don't want the frost to hit the open heads. So I'm hoping, give this another day and pick it, and then I'll just go through and pick anything that's showing yellow and try and have those for Mother's Day as well. Okay, next row is Chrissy's. I can't remember what I've got here. I did plants. Oh, I've got delphinium, having a lot of trouble trying to get that to germinate. So we'll see what happens there. I can see I've got a couple of renucks coming up too. But this is our Chrissy's. And this is probably my next thing that I'm probably going to get obsessed with. I've done the dahlia obsession. I feel like I'm in a good place with my knowledge on dahlias. And now I've moved on to Chrissy's because they have the most beautiful varieties. They're just stunning and I love them. So these are for Mother's Day. I just really need the rest to open. I'm hoping that they will open. But look, here, I didn't net. I think because this is a permanent row, I will put a permanent solution in for these. But look at this, it's so gorgeous. I'm not going to be able to straighten these up either, so now they're bent, they're bent. But look how pretty. I don't know who would remember this, but I think it was like towards the end of winter, I started taking cuttings from the chrysanthemums that I purchased from the wholesaler. So the stems are so long, I would trim the bottom of the stem to get rid of the yucky bit at the bottom, take a cutting about this big off the flowers that I'd purchased, and then I'd use the rest in bouquets. And I started striking the cuttings and they worked. And some of these are actually those cuttings from the stock from the wholesaler, which is really exciting. I think it's really exciting. But now when I see a variety in at the wholesaler that I'm like, oh, that one's so gorgeous, I grab it so I can do a cutting off it. And another thing with the Chrissy's is same as dahlias. I will go through, photograph everything, take a photo and label. Some of them are already labelled, but some I don't know what they are, and I may not be able to identify them. But I will at least have a picture reference for each one so I know what I'm growing, and I'll know what I want to do more cuttings of for next season. So I'm pretty excited about Chrissy's. It looks messy, but it's good. I should have come through and taken all these covers off before the thing. I'll just quickly do it. Okay, done. They are looking absolutely gorgeous. Look at the colours. They're really colouring up. This is the bicolour. I almost think it's more of a tricolour. It's got the pink centre, then the white, and then the green on the outside. Very pretty. Definitely smell like cabbages. And you know the smell of cabbage. So when you're travelling with a lot of the castings, it's an interesting thing because they're so pretty in a bouquet, but you don't want to go too heavy on it because of the scent. These were also planted in January. I had the seedlings in the ground by the 15th of January. Tiny ones like this. Very small. So this is the next succession. And they grew through that heat. And the thing about the ornamental kale is they need the cold to colour up. So a couple of weeks ago, these didn't have these beautiful purple vibrant centres. They had a little bit of colour but not a lot. We've had a couple of weeks of cold and look at them. And I have been through, I just have to keep going through and taking leaves off because I don't want energy put into those, and they'll keep trying to grow them big. So it's just, you got to keep coming in. But look at the stems. I didn't net these either, which was a bit silly. Some of them are okay. They're still developing long enough for me to use, which is good. But yeah, I want to get some height on them. I've got a week until Mother's Day and I want to try and get as much height as I can. So this will be a job this afternoon. I'll come through and take leaves off again. But I'm so happy with them. They're beautiful. These new little seedlings, to try to get them to not fall over, I have been pushing the mulch up around them to try to keep them upright. And so far so good. They do get to a point where their stems get strong enough that they're not going to fall over. So I just got to stay on top of that. So this is a little bit of maintenance for this afternoon. Next row is veggies and a little bit of bed maintenance. So we've got carrots. We've been eating them. They're beautiful. I'll pull one out now and I'll show you. You pull them out sort of like you're wiggling a tooth. How gorgeous is that? And they taste so good. Moroni was like, why are you growing all these foods that are so cheap to buy? And I'm like, because they taste so good. And he gets it now. He's tasted it. They've got actual taste. This was my last succession of carrot, but I don't think, I can see a little bit over here has come up. You can see those little tiny hairy looking sections. They are. Carrot doesn't like any light to germinate, and because the seed's so small, you don't plant it very deep. So one trick that you can do to just speed it up, to get it up quicker, is plant it and then put something over the soil like cardboard or a piece of old carpet or something to keep the light out, and then you just lift it each day just to check, and as soon as they've popped through the ground, you take that off the top and then they'll just grow. I didn't do that, obviously. And then this is just an in-bed mulching situation. Leaves that I've been pulling off the kale, they're in here. The snow peas, the beans that I chopped them up, put them in. We've got manure and mulch, and I need to come out. It's time to turn it. So I'm just mulching in place here, and then when these veggies are all finished, I spread it out, and then that's a row that is fixed, because this plot 3 it's pretty poor soil. It's going to take a bit of work to get it up, and that's one of the reasons why we've got so many weeds in with the snaps. It's just really weedy, really rocky, really crappy soil. Okay, next we've got beets, and I've got my little ones there in. I've got this succession, and then we have the rest in Swedes because we eat a lot of them. We actually just absolutely love them, like we can't get enough. And again, these were January planted, and they're amazing. Have a look at this. Look how big that is. I'm going to pick it now, and we're going to have that one for tea. Check that out. How gorgeous. Pretty chuffed with the veggies too. Got a tiny little section of feverfew here. And then I've got another veggie row. I'll just take the cover off. I'm back. So we've got cabbages. These were all in January as well. They're starting to curl up, which is really exciting. And these were actually miniature cabbages, but they're still pretty big. But that's a really good size for us. And it's a good size for a garden, because grown full-size cabbages, you'll know that they're massive. They take up so much space in the garden, like 1/2 metre each. And then broccoli, which isn't still doing much. I'm waiting for it to get a head on it or do something. I am ahead of schedule though, so at least we've got that. And then we've got Brussels sprouts, and I love them, and I can see them starting to develop. So can't wait to have a feed of Brussels sprouts. I tried to grow them last year and I got them in way too late. So that's why I put them in January, because what I read was you really need the plant to be, almost fully grown before the cold weather hits, and then the little Brussels sprouts will develop. So fingers crossed what I read is right. Just waiting to eat some of them. You can see I don't have bugs or marks or anything on any of these plants, and it's just because I've had that net on them. Some of the plants are getting a bit big for the net though, so I might leave it off today and risk it and see what happens. Next row, I do have bells of Ireland in. I just direct sowed them. I can see a little bit of action, but we're just going to have to wait and see on that one. And then the rest is veggies. Just things like we've got celery, spinach, and radishes, because Moroni loves radish. I've also got snow peas in along the back. So it seems like there's more dying than growing right now. But the things that are growing are just so exciting. It gives me so much. I feel like it's so much potential for the future. Not only to be having veggies through winter, which I've struggled with, finally figured that out, but to have these flowers ready for Mother's Day. So the chrysies, the kale, the snaps if they were not falling over. I just feel like I've finally figured out the timing for the flower farm, and to be able to have flowers for Mother's Day and not have to buy so many in, because our flower bill for Mother's Day is usually about $1,500. And I've got that down to $800 this year just from the kale and the Chrissies. I am buying in some more Chrissies too. So I don't know if I mentioned that in the previous videos about Mother's Day, but that's the difference it makes. So imagine if I can reduce that back to nothing and make an extra $1,500 on Mother's Day. That would be amazing. Last 2 rows, I just want to show you, again, plot 3, horrible soil, lots of rocks. I have filled it with manure, which has its own problems. I'm growing lots of weeds again, but I'll just keep on top of that. But these are ranunculus, and they were soaked, but not pre-sprouted. I'll show you the ones over at the house that I didn't even soak, and they've all come up. So it just takes a little bit of time. We're just waiting for them to start to pop through. And then over here, I've got the self-sown things. So Nigella, gypsophila, which I have a lot of trouble trying to grow. It'll be interesting if I can get that to pop up. Someone did say that the gypsophila is much better direct sown rather than in a tray and transplanted. So I'm trying that. I may have left that a little late in the season. So we'll just see what happens with that one. And some status at the front, which I may have left a bit late as well. These were only about a month ago that they went in. So I'll watch this space scenario. The thing is, if they don't germinate and we don't get any flowers here, it's not a waste, because getting those in prompted me to work on these beds. I've pulled buckets and buckets of rocks out, but you can see they've just, every time the water hits it, it just exposes more rocks. So I've got more rocks to pull out. I've plumped it up with a lot of manure. So we're making progress. If they don't germinate, I will cover it with more organic matter, leaves, and we let it sit for the winter and break down and turn into some beautiful soil ready for next season. But yeah, there's not a whole heap going on right now, but I feel really happy with the progress. Hello, husband pie. What have you got on your head?
I think the Guatemala. I think it's something that James made.
Oh, hear more.
What's up?
Do you reckon we should start prepping these beds, like digging up dahlias and do it?
I guess we could, or we can just go to Mexico.
Let's do that.
Okay.